The text message glowed on Dana's phone like a neon sign in the darkness of our bedroom. Can't wait to feel you again tomorrow, Grant. I stood there in my work clothes, HVAC grease still under my fingernails, holding my wife's phone that had buzzed while she showered. 42 years old, 20 years of marriage, and this is how I find out my life is a joke. Caleb, is that my phone? Dana's voice carried from the bathroom, sweet as honey, innocent as a lamb. Yeah, honey, I called back, my voice steady as a rock. Just checking the time. The shower was still running. I had maybe 3 minutes before she came out. 3 minutes to decide whether to confront her now or play the long game. The smart money was on the long game. I scrolled through their conversation. Grant Beck, I knew that name, sales rep for Morrison Industrial Supply, one of those guys who wore expensive suits and drove a BMW he couldn't afford. The kind of man who thought charm was a substitute for character. The messages went back weeks, graphic details about hotel rooms, complaints about boring Caleb and his hopeless HVAC business, plans for a weekend getaway while I was supposedly visiting my sister in Toledo. My hands didn't shake, my heart didn't race. 20 years in the heating and cooling business teaches you to stay calm when everything's falling apart. When a furnace explodes, you don't panic. You assess the damage and fix what can be fixed. But some things can't be fixed. Some things need to be torn down and rebuilt from scratch. The shower stopped. I placed the phone exactly where I found it and walked downstairs to my workshop in the basement, my sanctuary, the place where I built my business from nothing, where I solved other people's problems, where I was still the man I used to be. I sat at my workbench and opened a beer. The first of many, I suspected. Dana appeared at the top of the stairs 20 minutes later, wrapped in her pink robe, hair still damp. You're awfully quiet tonight. Rough day? Just thinking, I said, not looking up from the invoice I was pretending to review. How was your day? Anything interesting happen? She laughed, that musical sound I used to love. Same old office drama. Shannon's driving everyone crazy with her new efficiency reports. Oh, and we're planning that charity fundraiser for next month. I might be working late a few nights this week. Working late. I nodded slowly. That's dedication. Someone has to pay attention to the details. She came down the stairs, kissed the top of my head. I'm making dinner. Meatloaf okay? Perfect. She headed back upstairs, and I heard her humming. Actually humming. The woman was planning to spend tomorrow afternoon in a hotel room with Grant Beck, and she was humming while making my dinner. I pulled out my own phone and did what any reasonable man would do in 2024. I started gathering evidence. Grant Beck's social media profiles painted a perfect picture of everything I wasn't. 6'2", full head of hair, posts about wine tastings and weekend trips to Chicago. His LinkedIn showed a steady climb up the corporate ladder at Morrison Industrial. His Instagram was full of gym selfies and photos of expensive dinners, the kind of man who never had grease under his fingernails or worried about whether the truck would start on a cold morning. I spent the next 3 days learning everything about Grant Beck, where he lived, a trendy apartment complex called Riverside Gardens, where he worked, the Morrison Building downtown, where he ate lunch, always the same sandwich shop on 5th Street, where he worked out, Planet Fitness on Tuesday and Thursday evenings. Dana, meanwhile, was practically glowing. New clothes, new perfume, spending extra time on her makeup. She'd always been attractive, but now she carried herself differently, like she had a secret that made her special. She did have a secret. She just didn't know that I knew. I'm working late again tonight, she announced Thursday morning over coffee. This fundraiser is turning into a real project. What kind of fundraiser? I asked, buttering my toast with the same care I used to seal ductwork. Attention to detail was everything. For the Children's Hospital. Shannon's organizing it, but you know how she is. Everything has to be perfect, so the rest of us end up doing the actual work. Shannon Reese. Dana's best friend and coworker, the woman who'd been cold to me ever since I'd refused to hire her husband for a job he wasn't qualified for 3 years ago. I wondered how deep her involvement went in Dana's new romance. That's nice of you to help, I said. What time do you think you'll be home? Probably around 9. Don't wait up. I kissed her goodbye like I had every morning for 20 years. She tasted like lies and cheap lip gloss. At 5:30 p.m., I parked across the street from the Marriott downtown and waited. Sure enough. At 6:15, Dana's Honda pulled into the parking garage. At 6:20, Grant's BMW followed. I sat there for an hour, watching the windows of the hotel, drinking coffee from a thermos and thinking about the man I used to be. The man who believed in his marriage, who trusted his wife, who thought hard work and loyalty meant something. That man was gone now. What sat in his place was something colder, something more focused, something with nothing left to lose. My phone buzzed. A text from Dana. Meeting running long, home by 10. I texted back, no problem, love you. The lies came so easily now. At 8:30, they emerged from the hotel separately. Dana looked flustered, checking her reflection in every surface. Grant looked smug, adjusting his tie like he'd just closed a big sale. I followed Dana home, staying 3 cars back, watching her practice her story at red lights. She'd touch her hair, check her makeup, rehearse her expression. By the time she pulled into our driveway, she'd transformed back into the faithful wife. How was the meeting? I asked when she came inside. Exhausting. Shannon had us reorganizing the entire event timeline. I need a shower. Good idea, I said. You smell like hotel soap? She froze halfway up the stairs. What? I said you look like you need to relax. Oh, right. Yes, I do. She was getting sloppy. Good. Sloppy people make mistakes, and I was counting on mistakes. Friday morning, I called in sick to work. First time in 2 years, but I had research to do. I drove to Morrison Industrial Supply and waited in the parking lot until I saw Grant's BMW. Then I walked into the building like I belonged there. I'm here to see Grant Beck, I told the receptionist. Caleb Morris from Morris HVAC. We're discussing a potential partnership. She directed me to the 3rd floor. Grant's office was exactly what I expected. Glass walls, motivational posters, a desk that had never seen real work. Through the window, I could see him on the phone, gesturing with his free hand like he was conducting an orchestra. I didn't go in, I just wanted to see him in his natural habitat. The man who was destroying my marriage worked in a climate-controlled environment, wore a tie every day, and probably hadn't touched a tool in his life. On my way out, I stopped at the building directory. Morrison Industrial Supply, Suite 301, Beck Grant, Account Manager. And there, 2 floors down, Riverside Property Management, Suite 101. Interesting. I spent the afternoon at the county clerk's office learning about public records. Amazing what you can find when you know where to look. Grant Beck's apartment lease, his credit report, his employment history. The man lived paycheck to paycheck despite his fancy lifestyle. 3 credit cards maxed out, 2 months behind on his car payment. A man with money problems was a man with vulnerabilities. That evening, Dana announced another late meeting for Monday. I nodded sympathetically and offered to pick up dinner for her on her way home. You're so thoughtful, she said, kissing my cheek. I'm lucky to have you. The words hit like a punch to the gut, but I kept my expression neutral. Just taking care of my wife. Sunday, I drove to Riverside Gardens and walked around the complex like a prospective tenant. Nice place, pool, fitness center, covered parking. Expensive. Too expensive for a man behind on his bills. Grant's apartment was on the 2nd floor, corner unit with a view of the river. Through the sliding glass door, I could see expensive furniture and a big screen TV. A man trying very hard to look successful. The parking garage had security cameras, but they were old models, probably more for show than actual security. The kind of system a man in my line of work could disable without breaking a sweat. Not that I was planning anything illegal, I was just gathering information. Knowledge was power, and I was building an arsenal. Monday evening, I followed the same routine. Parked across from the Marriott, watched my wife and her lover meet for their weekly rendezvous. This time, I took pictures. Not for any legal proceeding, Illinois was a no-fault divorce state, but because I wanted evidence of their betrayal. Something concrete to remind me why I was doing what I was about to do. At 9:45, Dana texted, "Just leaving now? Grab milk on way home?" I texted back, "Already got some. Drive safe." She walked in the door at 10:15, full of stories about the fundraiser planning, the difficult decisions, the long hours. She'd gotten good at lying. I had to give her that. If I didn't know better, I might have believed her, but I did know better. And now it was time to start evening the score. Tuesday morning, I made my first call to Morrison Industrial Supply. Grant Beck's office. This is Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer. This is Mike from HR. I need to verify some information about Mr. Beck's expense reports. Can you tell me if he submitted any hotel receipts in the past month? Oh, I don't handle his expenses. You'd need to talk to accounting. Actually, never mind. I'll check the system myself. Thanks. I hung up and dialed again, this time asking for accounting. This is Sarah in accounting. Hi, Sarah. This is Tom from the Marriott downtown. We're having a billing dispute with one of your employees, Grant Beck. He's claiming his company should be charged for his room, but we don't have any corporate account information on file. That's strange. Let me check. No, I don't see any authorized hotel expenses for Grant Beck. Are you sure he said it was a business expense? He was very insistent, said it was for client meetings. Well, if it's not authorized by us, it's his personal expense. We can't help you with that. Thanks for clearing that up. I hung up with a smile. Grant was paying for those hotel rooms himself, probably putting them on one of his maxed-out credit cards. A man making poor financial decisions was a man who could be pressured. That afternoon, I called Grant's apartment complex. Riverside Gardens. This is Kelly. Hi, Kelly. This is Dave from Beck Financial Services. I'm trying to reach one of your tenants, Grant Beck, about his account. He's not answering his phone, and we have some urgent matters to discuss. I can't give out tenant information, but I can take a message. Actually, maybe you can help me. We're showing that his automatic payment for this month was declined. Is he current on his rent? There was a pause. Sir, I really can't discuss tenant accounts with third parties. Of course, I understand. It's just that we're trying to help him avoid any complications. If his rent payment bounced too, he might be in more trouble than he realizes. Another pause. You said Beck Financial Services? That's right. Well, I probably shouldn't say this, but he did come in yesterday asking about a payment extension. Said he had some cash flow issues, but they'd be resolved by the end of the week. I see. Well, we'll keep trying to reach him. Thanks for your time. Perfect. Grant Beck was living beyond his means, juggling bills, probably stressed about money. A man under financial pressure was a man who made mistakes, and I was counting on mistakes. That evening, Dana announced she'd be working late again Thursday. Shannon wants to finalize the vendor contracts, she explained. It might be another long night. You've been putting in a lot of hours on this fundraiser, I said. When is it again? 3 weeks from Saturday at the community center. You should come. It's for a good cause. Wouldn't miss it, I said, and I meant it. By then, everyone in town would know exactly what kind of woman my wife really was. Wednesday, I took another sick day. This time, I visited the Marriott. I'd like to speak to the manager, I told the desk clerk. Is there a problem? I hope not. I'm a private investigator working on a divorce case. I need to verify that certain individuals have been meeting here regularly. The manager, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, listened to my story with professional detachment. I showed her the photos I'd taken, explained that I was gathering evidence for my client. We can't give out guest information, she said, but if you have a subpoena... I don't need records, I said. I just need confirmation. The man in this photo, tall, brown hair, drives a BMW. Has he been here regularly? Usually with this woman? She glanced at the photos. I can't officially confirm anything, but if your client is the woman's husband, I'm sorry for what he's going through. He'll be fine, I said. He's stronger than people think. That was all the confirmation I needed. Now it was time to start applying pressure. Thursday evening, instead of following Dana to the hotel, I drove to Grant's apartment complex. I parked in the visitor section and waited. At 8:30, his BMW pulled into the garage. He was alone. Dana would have driven herself home by now to maintain the illusion. I waited until he'd had time to get upstairs, then called his cell phone. Grant Beck. Mr. Beck, this is Officer Martinez with the Riverside Police Department. We've had reports of suspicious activity in your parking garage. Have you noticed anything unusual lately? Suspicious activity? No, What kind of activity? Someone's been tampering with vehicles, scratching paint, letting air out of tires. We're asking all residents to be extra vigilant. You drive a blue BMW, correct? Yes, that's right. You might want to check on it. We found evidence of tampering on several vehicles in your section tonight. I hung up and watched from across the street as Grant came running out of the building in his bathrobe and slippers. He spent 10 minutes examining his precious BMW, checking every inch of paint, looking under the car, testing the tires. There was nothing wrong with his car, of course. But now he was paranoid, looking over his shoulder, wondering who might be watching him. The next morning, I called Morrison Industrial Supply again. Grant Beck's office. Hi, this is Detective Johnson with the Financial Crimes Unit. I need to speak with Mr. Beck about some irregularities in his expense reports. Financial crimes? Oh my. He's in a meeting right now. Can I take a message? Just have him call me back. It's regarding some hotel charges that may have been improperly categorized as business expenses. I left a fake number and hung up. By now, Grant would be sweating. Pressure from home, pressure at work, pressure from all sides. That evening, Dana came home from her meeting, looking stressed. Everything okay? I asked. Just work stuff. Shannon's being impossible about the budget. She's questioning every expense, making everyone justify their decisions. Sounds stressful. It is. And some of the vendors are being difficult too. Grant from Morrison Industrial is having some kind of problem with his company. Something about his expense accounts being audited. I nodded sympathetically. That's tough. Nothing worse than being under a microscope at work. Exactly. It's affecting everyone's mood. Poor Grant. All that pressure was probably making it hard for him to focus on his extracurricular activities. What a shame. Saturday, I decided to escalate things. I drove to the Marriott and asked to speak to the manager again. I'm back about that divorce case, I told her. My client wants to confront his wife and her lover directly. He's planning to show up during one of their meetings. She looked concerned. That doesn't sound like a good idea. I agree, but he's not listening to reason. He's talking about Monday evening around 6:30. I'm hoping you might discourage their use of your facilities for everyone's safety. She nodded slowly. I understand. We'll handle it discreetly. Monday evening, I parked across from the Marriott as usual. Dana arrived right on schedule, but this time she only stayed in the parking garage for 5 minutes before driving away, her phone pressed to her ear. Grant's BMW never showed up at all. At 9:30, Dana came home looking frustrated. How was the meeting? I asked. Canceled at the last minute. Shannon had some kind of emergency. That's too bad. All that drive for nothing. Yeah, really frustrating. She went upstairs without another word. I sat in my chair, sipping a beer, enjoying the first real satisfaction I'd felt in weeks. Round 1 to me. The next morning, I made a decision that would change everything. I called my old friend Tommy Martinez. Yes, the same last name I'd used when calling Grant. Tommy was a real cop, and he owed me a favor from when I'd fixed his furnace for free during the polar vortex 3 years ago. Caleb, how the hell are you? Been better, Tommy. I need some advice. Hypothetically speaking, what would happen if someone was using company funds for personal expenses? Like hotel rooms? Hypothetically? Depends on the amount and the company's policy. Could be anything from termination to criminal charges. Why, you got an employee skimming? Something like that. What if I had proof? Proof is good. Documentation is better. You got receipts, bank records, that kind of thing? Working on it. Well, if this hypothetical person is stupid enough to leave a paper trail, they're probably stupid enough to get caught. Just make sure you're clean yourself when the hammer falls. Always am, Tommy. Thanks. That afternoon, I paid a visit to Shannon Reese. Shannon lived in one of the new developments on the north side of town, the kind of place where every house looked the same and every lawn was perfect. Her husband worked at the bank, her kids were in college, and she drove a Lexus SUV that cost more than I made in 6 months. I rang the doorbell at 2 p.m. when I knew she'd be home from her half-day Friday schedule. Caleb, what are you doing here? Hi, Shannon. I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd stop by. Got a minute to talk? She looked uncomfortable, but let me in. The house was exactly what I expected. Expensive furniture, family photos everywhere, everything perfectly arranged. How's Dana? She asked, not quite meeting my eyes. That's actually what I wanted to talk about. She's been working a lot of late nights on this fundraiser you're organizing. I wanted to thank you for including her. Oh, well, she's very dedicated. She is, always has been. 20 years of marriage, and she's never lied to me about anything important. Shannon's face went pale. That's nice? It is. Trust is everything in a marriage, don't you think? Without trust, what do you have? Caleb, I should tell you. Tell me what? She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see the wheels turning. She knew that I knew. The question was whether she'd try to warn Dana or cut her losses. Nothing, she said finally. Just that the fundraiser is a lot of work. Maybe Dana should take a break, spend more time at home. That's thoughtful advice. I'll mention it to her. I left Shannon's house knowing I'd planted a seed of doubt. She'd be wondering how much I knew, what I was planning, whether she was safe, and people who felt unsafe made poor decisions. That evening, Dana announced that the fundraiser committee was taking a break for the week. Shannon thinks we're all getting burned out, she explained. She wants everyone to step back and recharge. Smart woman, I said. You have been looking tired lately. For the first time in weeks, Dana stayed home 3 nights in a row. She seemed nervous, jumpy, checking her phone constantly but not responding to messages. Whatever Shannon had told her, it had rattled her. Good. Let her worry for a change. Thursday, I made my next move. I called Morrison Industrial Supply and asked to speak to Grant's supervisor. This is Robert Chen. Mr. Chen, this is David Walsh from the Marriott downtown. I'm calling about some irregularities in your employee Grant Beck's expense account. Irregularities? He's been charging personal hotel stays to a corporate account that doesn't exist. When we try to process the payments, they get declined, but he keeps insisting his company will cover the charges. How much are we talking about? About $800 over the past 6 weeks. We've been patient, but our accounting department is asking questions. There was a long pause. I'll look into this immediately. Thank you for calling. Of course. We value our relationship with Morrison Industrial. Friday morning, Dana got a call that made her face go white. What's wrong? I asked. Grant's been suspended from work. Some kind of expense account problem. That's terrible. What kind of problem? I don't know. Shannon just heard about it from someone at Morrison. They're investigating him for misusing company funds. I shook my head sympathetically. In this economy, people do stupid things. Hope it works out for him. But I knew it wouldn't. Grant Beck was about to learn that actions have consequences, and I was just getting started. Saturday afternoon, I was replacing a water heater for Mrs. Patterson down the street when I saw Grant's BMW pull into my driveway. Through the basement window, I watched him march up to my front door like he owned the place. The doorbell rang 3 times, sharp and angry. I took my time washing my hands, drying them carefully, checking my appearance in the bathroom mirror. Then I walked upstairs and opened the door. Grant Beck looked like hell. Unshaven, wrinkled clothes, eyes red from lack of sleep. The confident sales rep was gone, replaced by a desperate man with nothing left to lose. We need to talk, he said. About what? You know damn well about what. You've been screwing with my life. I stepped aside and gestured for him to come in. Dana's at the grocery store, but you probably already knew that. He followed me into the living room, his hands clenched into fists. You called my work. You called my apartment. You've been following us. Have I? That's a serious accusation. Cut the bullshit, Caleb. I know it was you. I sat down in my recliner, the same chair I'd been sitting in when I discovered his text message 2 weeks ago. You want a beer? You look like you could use one. I want you to stop. Stop what exactly? The phone calls, the harassment, whatever game you're playing. I studied his face, seeing the fear behind the anger. Grant, I'm going to be straight with you. I know about the affair. He went very still. What affair? The one where you've been sleeping with my wife for the past 2 months. The hotel rooms you can't afford, the lies you've both been telling. I don't know what you're talking about. I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the photos I'd taken outside the Marriott. Him and Dana walking to the parking garage, her hand on his arm. This is what I'm talking about. Grant stared at the photo, and I watched his last hope die. Shit. Yeah, shit. Look, Caleb, it wasn't supposed to happen. But it did happen. For 2 months it happened, in hotel rooms that you charged to a corporate account that doesn't exist, which is why you're suspended from work. You snake. I'm not the one who destroyed my marriage, Grant. You did that. I'm just making sure there are consequences. He stood up, pacing to the window, running his hands through his hair. What do you want? I want you to understand something. You thought you could take my wife, destroy my marriage, and walk away clean. But I'm not the kind of man who lets that slide. So what? You're going to ruin my career? My life? Your career ruined itself when you started stealing from your company. Your life ruined itself when you decided to sleep with another man's wife. I never stole anything. No? Then how are you paying for those hotel rooms? Your credit cards are maxed out, you're behind on your rent, and you make $43,000 a year? Where did the money come from? His face went gray. How do you know about my finances? I know a lot of things, Grant. I know you've been lying to Dana about your success. I know you drive a car you can't afford and live in an apartment that costs half your take-home pay. I know you're a fraud. You're insane. Maybe. But I'm not the one who's about to lose everything. The front door opened, and Dana walked in carrying grocery bags. She saw Grant and froze. What's going on? Grant was just leaving, I said. Weren't you, Grant? He looked between me and Dana, trapped. Dana, we need to talk. No, I said, standing up. You need to leave, now. Caleb, please, Dana said. Let me explain. Explain what? How you've been lying to me for 2 months? How you've been meeting your boyfriend in hotel rooms while I worked to pay our bills? Grant moved toward the door. I should go. Yes, you should. And Grant, don't come back. Don't call. Don't text. Stay away from my wife and stay away from my house. He left without another word. Dana stood in the hallway, still holding the grocery bags, tears running down her face. How long have you known? She asked. 2 weeks. Why didn't you say anything? I wanted to see how far you'd go. Turns out, pretty far. She set down the bags and walked into the living room. I never meant for this to happen. But it did happen. The question is, what happens now? I don't know. I do, I said. You're going to call Shannon and tell her you won't be working on the fundraiser anymore. You're going to delete Grant's number from your phone, and you're going to decide whether you want to be married to me or not. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You made a choice when you started sleeping with him. Now you get to make another choice. She looked at me with something I hadn't seen in years, respect, maybe even fear. What if I choose wrong? Then you'll find out just how much damage an angry husband can do. Dana chose wrong. Monday morning, she announced she was going to stay with Shannon for a few days to think things through. By Tuesday, Grant's BMW was parked outside Shannon's house. By Wednesday, Dana had hired a lawyer. That's when I decided to stop playing defense and go on the attack. I started with Grant's employer. I called Morrison Industrial Supply and asked to speak to the owner, William Morrison himself. Mr. Morrison, this is Caleb Morris from Morris HVAC. I understand you're having some personnel issues with one of your account managers. I'm sorry, but I can't discuss personnel matters. Of course not, but I can discuss business matters. Grant Beck has been using your company's name to secure credit at local hotels. He's been telling people he has a corporate account when he doesn't. What kind of credit? Hotel rooms, about $1,000 worth over the past 2 months. He's been representing himself as acting on behalf of Morrison Industrial. There was a long pause. Do you have documentation of this? I have photos, receipts, and witness statements. Grant Beck has been using your company's reputation to support his personal activities. What kind of personal activities? The kind that involve other men's wives. Another pause. I see. Can you send me what you have? I'll have it to you by end of business today. I spent the afternoon putting together a comprehensive package. Photos of Grant and Dana at the hotel, copies of their text messages, a timeline of his expense account irregularities, a statement from the hotel manager about his claims of corporate coverage. I hand-delivered it to Morrison Industrial at 4:30 p.m. Grant was fired by 5 p.m. That evening, I called Dana at Shannon's house. We need to talk, I said. I don't think that's a good idea. Your boyfriend just lost his job. Thought you should know. Silence. Caleb, what did you do? I told his boss the truth about how he's been spending his time and money. Turns out employers don't like it when their sales reps use the company name to commit fraud. You destroyed his career. He destroyed his career when he decided to sleep with you. I just made sure everyone knew about it. You're being cruel. I'm being honest. There's a difference. What do you want from me? I want you to understand that actions have consequences. You wanted to throw away 20 years of marriage for a man who lies about his income and steals from his employer. Now you get to live with that choice. I'm filing for divorce. Good. That'll make things easier. Easier for what? For what comes next. Thursday, I visited Shannon's house again. This time, I brought a folder full of documents. We need to talk, I told her. Caleb, this isn't appropriate. Dana's staying here because she needs space. Dana's staying here because you've been enabling her affair from the beginning, but that's not why I'm here. I opened the folder and spread the contents across her kitchen table. Bank statements, credit reports, employment records. What is this? This is everything I know about Grant Beck. His real income, his debts, his employment history. Did you know he's been fired from 3 jobs in the past 5 years? Did you know he owes $18,000 in credit card debt? Shannon stared at the documents. How did you get this? Public records, mostly. Amazing what you can find when you know where to look. Did Dana know she was risking her marriage for a man who can't pay his bills? That's not... Money isn't everything. No, but honesty is. And Grant Beck is a liar. About his success, about his finances, about everything. He's been using your friend to make himself feel important. You don't know that. I know he's been charging hotel rooms to a corporate account that doesn't exist. I know he's been telling people he's successful when he's actually broke. I know he's been lying to Dana about his intentions. I pulled out another document. This is a credit report from 6 months ago. He was already in financial trouble before he met Dana. She's not his girlfriend. She's his meal ticket. Shannon's face went white. I don't believe you. Call Morrison Industrial. Ask them why Grant Beck was fired. Ask them about the fraud investigation. I gathered up the documents and put them back in the folder. Your friend is about to throw away her marriage and her reputation for a man who's been lying to her from day one. Thought you should know. I left Shannon's house knowing I'd planted another seed of doubt. By evening, Dana would know the truth about Grant's finances, and once she realized she'd been played, the affair would collapse under its own weight. Friday morning, my phone rang at 6 a.m. Caleb, it's me. Dana's voice was small, defeated. Can I come home? That depends. Is it over with Grant? Yes, it's over. Good, come home. But I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. Dana came home Friday evening with her tail between her legs, full of apologies and promises. She'd learned about Grant's lies, his debts, his history of using women to solve his financial problems. The fairy tale romance had turned into a nightmare of deception. I listened to her confession with the patience of a man who'd already won. I was so stupid, she said. He made me feel special, like I was the most important thing in his world. You were important, I said. You had a steady job, a husband with a successful business, and access to money he needed. You were very important to him. That's not what I meant. I know what you meant, but that's the reality. You fell for a con man. She cried then, the kind of deep, body-shaking sobs that come from true regret. But tears couldn't undo 2 months of betrayal. Tears couldn't erase the lies, the hotel rooms, the humiliation. What happens now? She asked. Now you learn what consequences look like. Saturday morning, I made a phone call to the organizer of the charity fundraiser. Mrs. Henderson, this is Caleb Morris. My wife Dana has been helping with your event. Oh yes, she's been wonderful, very dedicated. That's actually why I'm calling. I'm afraid Dana won't be able to continue with the fundraiser. Oh no, is she ill? Not ill exactly, but there's been a situation. She's been having an affair with one of your vendors, Grant Beck from Morrison Industrial. It's become quite a scandal. There was a long silence. I'm not sure what to say. I thought you should know before the event. Small towns talk, and people might have questions about Dana's involvement. Yes, of course. Thank you for telling me. By Sunday afternoon, half the town knew about Dana's affair. The other half would know by Monday morning. In a community of 8,000 people, scandal traveled faster than gossip, and this was both. Dana didn't leave the house all weekend. She sat in the living room, staring at her phone, watching her reputation crumble in real time. Friends stopped calling. Social media went quiet. The women who'd been her allies for 20 years suddenly had other plans. They all hate me, she said Sunday night. They don't hate you. They're disappointed. There's a difference. Is there? Hate fades. Disappointment lasts forever. Monday morning, Dana called in sick to work. She couldn't face her coworkers, couldn't handle the stares and whispers. Shannon had already distanced herself, claiming she'd tried to stop the affair, but Dana wouldn't listen. That afternoon, I got a call from Grant. You snake. You destroyed everything. I didn't destroy anything. You did that yourself. I lost my job, my apartment. Dana won't even talk to me. Sounds like a personal problem. You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you won. I know I won. This isn't over. Yes, it is. It's been over since the moment you decided to sleep with my wife. You just didn't know it yet. He hung up, but I wasn't worried about Grant Beck anymore. He was a broken man with no money, no job, and no prospects. He'd slink out of town within a month, looking for another woman to solve his problems. Tuesday, Dana finally went back to work. She came home that evening looking like she'd been through a war. How was it? I asked. Horrible. Everyone knows. They all look at me like I'm some kind of monster. You're not a monster. You're just a woman who made a terrible choice. The same thing in their eyes. Maybe, but monsters don't feel guilty about what they've done. Wednesday, I made my final move. I called the local newspaper. I'd like to place an ad in this week's edition. What kind of ad? Personal. I want to thank the community for their support during a difficult time in my marriage. The ad ran Thursday morning, right next to the obituaries where everyone would see it. Caleb Morris would like to thank his friends and neighbors for their kindness and support during his recent marital difficulties. The truth has a way of revealing itself, and he's grateful to live in a community that values honesty and integrity. Morris HVAC remains committed to serving this town with the same dedication and trustworthiness that has built our reputation over 20 years. It was a masterpiece of passive-aggressive revenge. I never mentioned Dana by name, never accused her of anything specific. But everyone who read it would know exactly what I was talking about, and they'd remember it every time they saw her at the grocery store, the gas station, or anywhere else in town. Dana read the ad over breakfast and started crying again. Why are you doing this to me? I'm not doing anything to you. I'm protecting my reputation and my business. By destroying mine. Your reputation destroyed itself. I'm just making sure people know where I stand. I said I was sorry. Sorry doesn't undo 2 months of lies. Sorry doesn't erase the humiliation. Sorry is just a word people use when they get caught. She looked at me with something between fear and respect. What kind of man are you? The kind who doesn't let people walk all over him. The kind who fights back when someone tries to destroy his life. I never tried to destroy your life. No? Then what do you call sleeping with another man for 2 months? What do you call lying to my face every single day? What do you call planning a future with someone else while I paid your bills? She had no answer for that. Friday evening, Grant Beck's BMW disappeared from Shannon's driveway. Saturday morning, I heard from Tommy Martinez that Grant had been arrested for writing bad checks at 3 different businesses around town. Apparently, he's been kiting checks all over the place, Tommy said, using one account to cover another, hoping nobody would notice. Desperate people do desperate things. Yeah, well, desperation doesn't make it legal. He's looking at felony fraud charges. Grant Beck was finished. His career was over, his reputation was destroyed, and now he was facing criminal charges. The man who'd tried to steal my wife had lost everything, and I wasn't even close to done yet. The charity fundraiser was held on Saturday night at the community center, exactly as planned. Dana, of course, didn't attend. She spent the evening at home, hiding from the community that had once welcomed her. I, however, made sure to be there. I arrived fashionably late, wearing my best suit and carrying a check for $500, more than Dana and I had ever donated to anything. The room fell quiet when I walked in, conversation stopping mid-sentence as people turned to stare. "Caleb," Mrs. Henderson rushed over, looking flustered. "How wonderful that you could make it." "Wouldn't miss it," I said, handing her the check. "It's for a great cause." The evening was a masterclass in small-town social dynamics. People approached me with carefully worded condolences, fishing for details about my marriage while expressing their support. I played the role of the dignified, wronged husband perfectly, gracious, composed, and just wounded enough to generate sympathy. "How are you holding up?" asked Margaret Walsh, the mayor's wife. "One day at a time," I replied. 20 years of marriage don't disappear overnight, but I'm learning to adapt. "Dana always seemed so devoted to you." "I thought so too, but people aren't always who they appear to be." By the end of the evening, I'd cemented my position as the victim and Dana's as the villain. The community's judgment was complete and final. She would never recover her standing in this town. Sunday morning, Dana announced she was going to visit her sister in Phoenix. "For how long?" I asked. "I don't know, maybe permanently." "Running away won't solve anything." "Staying here won't either. Everyone hates me. I can't go anywhere without people staring, whispering. I can't live like this." "You should have thought about that before you started the affair." I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you, but this is too much. You've destroyed my entire life." "I didn't destroy anything. I just made sure everyone knew the truth." "The truth?" "The truth is that I made a mistake. One mistake in 20 years of marriage. But you've turned it into a public execution." "One mistake?" "Dana, you lied to me every day for 2 months. You met another man in hotel rooms. You planned a future with him. That's not one mistake. That's a pattern of betrayal." She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her finally understanding who she was dealing with. "I never knew you could be so cold. You never gave me a reason to be. What if I stayed? What if I tried to make it right? There's no making this right. The trust is gone. The marriage is over. The only question is whether you want to leave with some dignity intact or wait for me to take that away too." She left for Phoenix on Tuesday morning. I helped her load her car, kissed her goodbye like a loving husband, and waved as she drove away. The neighbors watching from their windows saw a heartbroken man saying farewell to his unfaithful wife. The reality was simpler. I was watching my enemy retreat in defeat. Wednesday morning, I got a call from Shannon. "You're a monster," she said without preamble. "Good morning to you too, Shannon." "Dana's gone. She left town because of what you did to her." "What I did? I didn't sleep with Grant Beck. I didn't lie for 2 months. I didn't destroy my marriage." "You destroyed her reputation. You turned the whole town against her." "I told people the truth. If that destroyed her reputation, maybe her reputation wasn't worth preserving. She made a mistake. She made a choice, and choices have consequences. You're enjoying this, aren't you?" "I'm enjoying justice. There's a difference." Shannon hung up, but her call confirmed what I'd suspected. Dana wasn't coming back. She'd found a new life in Phoenix, away from the wreckage of her old one. That afternoon, I changed the locks on the house. Not because I was afraid Dana would return, but because I wanted to make it official. The old life was over. The new one was beginning. Thursday, I received divorce papers in the mail. Dana was filing from Arizona, claiming irreconcilable differences. No mention of adultery, no admission of guilt, just a legal fiction that would allow her to escape without further consequences. I signed them without hesitation. Friday evening, I was replacing a furnace for the Hendersons when Mrs. Henderson brought me a cup of coffee and a piece of news. Did you hear about that Grant Beck fellow? What about him? He pled guilty to the fraud charges, got 2 years probation, and has to pay restitution. Word is he's moving back in with his mother in Indiana. Sounds like he's getting his life together. I suppose. Still can't believe he got involved with Dana. She always seemed so level-headed. People surprise you sometimes. They certainly do. By the way, how are you doing? Really, I mean. I thought about the question. How was I doing? My marriage was over, my wife was gone, and my life had been turned upside down. But I'd fought back. I'd won. I'd made sure that everyone who'd wronged me paid a price. I'm doing fine, I said. Better than fine, actually. I'm free. And I was. Free from a lying wife. Free from a marriage built on deception. Free from the pretense that everything was fine when it wasn't. The revenge was complete. Dana had lost her husband, her home, her reputation, and her place in the community. Grant had lost his job, his freedom, and his future.